Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our next session of the South Carolina Arts Network, where we'll be talking a little bit about nonprofit HR best practices. It is a pleasure to introduce you to our speaker, Ms. Sharon McGhee. She's a certified professional in human resources and is the president of HR Cares RX LLC and the SLMM Enterprises LLC. I would say SLIM, but I'm not sure if that's how I should pronounce it. Where she helps and organizes with organizations and business development, coaching, diversity and inclusion consultation, and human resource consulting. She also does leadership development and training. She's an adjunct professor at the College of Charleston, and she holds a master's in management and leadership from Liberty University, a bachelor's in business administration management from Coastal Carolina University, and is pursuing a Ph.D. in organizational psychology at the Northcentral University. She is a graduate of Furman University in the Diversity Leadership Initiative and a graduate of the Charleston Metro Chamber of Commerce Leadership Charleston program and a graduate of the South of Leadership South Carolina. So she has all of the certifications. So this is the person that we're happy to introduce and have her speak with us today. And Ms. McGhee, it is a pleasure to have you, and the floor is yours. In just a moment, I just want to go over a few house rules. That there will be some times to have questions intermediately during the presentation, but if there's anything you want to communicate, you can also use the chat where I'll be monitoring. But I want to also create a safe and brave space for any questions that you have. So once we get to the end of the presentation and you have any questions that are specific to your organization, I will stop the recording so that you can have that level of privacy as well. So thank you so much for your attending today. And Ms. McGhee, the floor is yours.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to speak today. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And we're going to go ahead and get started. So our topic today is Introduction to HR Challenges in Nonprofits. So we know that nonprofits are mission-based, mission-focused, but in order to get the mission done, you got to have people. You've got to have folks, in leadership roles. You've got to have boots on the ground. You've got to have the administrative people working. And you've got to have fundraisers. So you've got so many different positions in the nonprofit that do different things to make sure that the nonprofit is meeting the mission and serving the community in which it resides. So we're going to get right into it. So this is kind of our agenda for this next hour. Understanding the context and the importance of HR and nonprofits. Compliance challenges, even though, you're a nonprofit, there's still certain regulatory and compliance regulations that you have to abide by. So we'll talk just a little bit about those things. New hire onboarding. That's going to be an interesting topic because we're going to talk about what's the best way to bring new people aboard your organization? Leadership development, fostering leadership skills within the nonprofit sector. Policy and procedure framework. Yeah, those policies and procedures are very important. We're going to talk a little bit about those. Performance management tools. How do you measure performance? And then how do you use performance management as a coaching tool for your employees? Salary and compensation. We know that nonprofits, it takes a lot for you to, you've got to raise money for your organization, but you also got to compensate and try to be competitive with other nonprofits, that may be similar or in the same area. So what's the best way to figure out how to pay your folks and make sure that your organization is competitive? And then we'll just do a recap of kind of what we talked about during this hour. So I may try to move kind of fast, but we'll see how how it all works out. So, introduction to HR challenges in nonprofits. Again, the nonprofit sector, if you are an ecosystem driven by mission over margins. Again, you try to, when you're doing your fundraiser, you're getting funding, you want to make sure that you spend the money wisely and making sure that you serve your community or those communities such as, the underserved or the disabled, or, you may have some areas where there may be food deserts. It just depends on what your mission is and who is the target demographic or target area, the reason why your organization exists. But being mission focused, you also have to think about your HR dynamics. You think about your employees, because if you don't have the employees, then the mission can't happen. HR's role is to mobilize talent towards social impact amidst budgetary and resource constraints. We know that nonprofits don't, again, they have to make sure that they know where every penny of the money goes that they're fundraising. And so they have to be cognizant of where that money is going and making sure that it's going into good places and being fed into good ground. Some common challenges we're going to talk about, again, compliance, onboarding, leadership development, clear policy making, performance management, compensation analysis. Those are areas in my experience with some of the nonprofits that I've been working with. These are some of the things that I have encountered with working with these nonprofits. And that's why I thought it'd be good to kind of talk about it in this platform. So compliance challenges and overview. So nonprofits must navigate a complex web of labor laws, tax codes, industry specific regulations. Some folks don't think nonprofits are a business. Nonprofits are a business. So there's certain laws that they still have to abide by, just like public and private service organizations. So you still have, the Civil Rights Act of 1964. You have FMLA, you have COBRA, you have the Fair Labor Standards Act. There's so many different laws, the Pregnancy Act, ADA. You still have, as a nonprofit, you still have to follow these same laws, again, as private and public organizations have to. So it's important that you understand these laws and understand that there are certain milestones. Like, for instance, for COBRA, and COBRA is the Consolidated Omnibus Reconciliation Act. And basically what that does is if you offer benefits and medical benefits to your employees, if they leave, you have to offer them COBRA. FMLA, you have to have I think it's 50 employees. If you hit that milestone of 50 employees, you may have to offer FMLA to your employees, which is the Family Medical Leave Act. That means what happens is if you have a sick child, if the person is sick, they have a sick child, parent, or spouse, they can use 12 weeks of not 12 unprotected, but 12 weeks of unpaid leave to be able to take care of themselves, a sick child, parent, or spouse. You'll have to offer that benefit as well. And if there is a military member, then FMLA goes a little bit further out to support that military member that may work for you and have to serve in the military. So that's something else, you have to be cognizant of. The Pregnancy Act is an interesting one. If someone is in your organization and they're pregnant, there's protection for them. Also, along with the Pregnancy Act, there is a Lactation Act. So if your employee has a baby, you have to provide a clean, safe place for them to do lactation. And I believe that's a new law over the last couple of years that has come out. So those are some of the things, again, that you need to be cognizant of with your nonprofit. Also, I-9s. I know there's some nonprofits that do I-9s, some that do not. But if you do I-9s, you have to do them consistently. That means every employee, new employee that you have to do the I-9. Not sure if you have to do the E-Verify, but definitely the I-9. And if you do I-9s, I-9s have to be separated from the personnel file. So all I-9s, if you put them in a notebook somewhere, file them in your, keep them locked in a file cabinet, those need to be done consistently within the first 3 days of hiring your new employee. A lot of organizations are not doing that. Make sure that you get the verified documents, because basically what the I-9 says is this person is eligible to work in the United States. Make sure you sign and date it, because a lot of folks, they just fill out the top portion and they don't sign and date it. You've got to sign and date that form. And again, make sure they're in a separate file folder with all the other I-9s of the employees, separate from the personnel and the medical files. Personnel files, what goes in those files are personal action forms, performance appraisals, applications, personal data sheets. Anything that's personal for that employee goes in that personnel file. The medical file has to be separated out. So anything that has personal health information needs to go separate in a medical file. Because most of the time, sometimes the supervisor will ask to look at the personnel file, and that's fine, but they do not need to see the medical file. That is a personal file. And make sure all these files are locked up, lock and key. Because a lot of that has social security numbers, birth dates, addresses, that kind of thing. So you want to make sure those things are protected and locked up. Also, the next thing we'll talk about is legal audits. Make sure you audit those I-9 forms. I'm sure you'll probably do payroll audits. Some organizations will hire auditors to come in to look at their finances and things like that. Make sure you're consistent with those things. Training programs, one of the training programs I recommend is sexual harassment or harassment training. I recommend that, and respect in the workplace at least once a year. Make that an annual training. Because there's a lot of harassment going on in the workplace. It could be sexual, it could be racial, it could be, a person who identifies as LGBT. They're protected too. No one should be subject to harassment in the workplace, period. So it's important to make sure you do those trainings. Diversity, equity, inclusion training. I recommend that training occur at least once a year. You could do intro to DE&I. You could do unconscious bias, a training on microaggressions. There's many different types of diversity, equity, inclusion training. And the reason why you do these trainings is because these things are occurring in the workplace. Okay. Onboarding. Onboarding is so important. So you've got to hire a new employee. So you spend a lot of money advertising with probably LinkedIn, Indeed. I don't know if they're still using Monster, websites, social media. You spend a lot of money advertising these jobs. You spend a lot of hours interviewing these applicants and you find your rock star. You find a person that, you know, was the best person for the position. You bring them in, you do, you know, your W-2s, your I-9s, the application resume, you put them in the payroll system, and then you just kind of put them in a spot and say, figure it out on your own. That is not the way to treat a rock star coming into your organization. So picture this. You've got somebody coming to stay at your home, and you make sure your house is clean. You make sure when they come in, you greet them, you offer them coffee, tea, sandwiches. You know, you make them feel at home when they come into your house. You take them on a tour of your home, especially if they're going to be staying with you for maybe a week or so, whatever. You're proud of your home, and so you want them to see where they're going to be staying. That's the way you should treat your new employee when they come into your organization. So again, you do the paperwork. That's the new hire orientation. Take them on a tour of the facility. Show them where they're going to be working. Show them where they get materials, the supplies. Introduce them to the folks that work in the organization. Also, assign them a buddy. If you, as the HR person or the person in leadership or the supervisor or whatever, if you can't take them out on the first day for lunch, then assign them a buddy. Somebody you trust, somebody who represents your organization. Have them, you know, escort them around. Again, provide money for a buddy lunch for both of them to go to lunch. Treat them like this is their new home. And so again, show them all the you know, where they're going to be sitting, what are they going to be doing. Go over the job description. I can't tell you how many times I talk to employees who say, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. Show them the job description, go through it, be very thorough about what their roles and their responsibilities are going to be. The other thing is let them know what their goals are. What are your expectations? What are the goals that you expect from that new employee? Let's look at 30, 60, and 90 days. Set some goals for 30 days. What is it that you want them to know or expect them to be doing or have done or have learned in the first 30 days? Do check-ins with them. See how they're doing in that first 30 days. Hey, how's it going? How you feeling about the job? Is there anything I can help you with? Do you have all the resources you need to be able to do the job? Is there something we're missing or something you're missing? Have that dialogue. Keep those lines of communication open with that new employee. Again, that's 30 days, 60 days. Again, do another check-in. How's it going? You got everything you need. What's working? What's not working? Have that open dialogue, that open communication with your new employee. And again, 90 days. And by that time, you and the employee will have determined, I like it here. I think I'm going to stay, or, not a good fit for me, or, you know, it might be not, they may not be a good fit for the organization. And that's where that 90-day probation, you know, a lot of organizations do a 90-day probationary period. And that's a good enough time to determine if that person is a good fit for your organization or not. And that time, again, you've had many conversations within those first 90 days, and then you can make a determination, or they make a determination if they're a good fit or not for the position. Hopefully they are. Hopefully there are, especially, again, since you spend a lot of time and a lot of money to recruit them. What else? Some organizations do offer assessments. So they may do a Myers-Briggs assessment, or a DISC assessment. That would also be a part, actually probably a part of the recruiting process. As they're doing the applications, you've done interviews, you've done the assessment, and that's probably a good bit of information or data for you to make a decision on whether that's a good, a great applicant or a great new employee. Also, we talked about the buddy system. We talked about feedback loops, milestone markers, again, to make sure that the employee understands their role and you've been communicating with them. And so nothing is a surprise for the employee. Leadership development programs. The other thing that I'm finding is a lot of individuals are, promoted into leadership roles and have not had any leadership training. And that can be a challenge with an organization, especially if they've never supervised people. And so leadership development programs are vital, especially if you're rising up to a director level position or even an ED. There's some EDs and roles that have never had leadership development programs. And that can be a detriment to the organization, because if they don't know how to lead, if they don't know how to talk or manage people, they don't know how to communicate effectively with their employees, it could get really bad to the point where you could ultimately have a toxic work environment, which is what you do not want. And so it's important that whoever's in a leadership role go through leadership development training, which could include communications, conflict resolution training, supervisory training, management training, how to do performance appraisals, those types of things. So that's where that leadership development training is so important and vital. The other thing about leadership development is strategic planning. So if you have a nonprofit, most nonprofits hopefully have a strategic plan. So you have the strategic plan, you use that as a pathway for the organization and for the mission and vision of that organization. And so strategic planning allows you to plan out the next 3 to 5 years of your nonprofit. And so again, a leader in the position helps chart the path of the organization and say, hey, this is what I would like to see this organization look like in the next 3 to 5 years. I would like these goals and objectives met, within those next 3 to 5 years. So they've established a goal and the objective. Then now you have to write the path or determine the path to meet those goals and objectives. And so a person in leadership should know how to do that. And if they don't, then people are just doing things just to be doing it. And there's no goals. There's no SMART goals, right? No specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely goals set. And so people just doing things just to be doing. There's no benchmarks, there's no measurements there, there's no metrics there. And so when you're starting to go looking for fundraising or looking for money for your organization, first thing the organization or the funder is going to ask is, so what's your benchmarks? Where's your metrics? Where's your data? And if you don't have that as a part of your strategic plan, then they're not going to be ready to give you money. And so that's why having someone in leadership who has had training and development will know how to stir the ship of the organization. They can make decisions quickly, smartly, effectively. And then they also will know how to manage the team to make sure that, again, the goals and objectives of the strategic plan is being met and the mission of the organization. Case studies, there's many case studies demonstrating the difference between transformational leadership and transactional leadership. Transformational leadership is the leader is transformative. You could tell they're making an impact. They care about the work that they're doing. They care about the mission of the organization. They care about the employees' welfare. They really genuinely, authentically care about the work that they're doing. Whereas a transactional one is just doing it just to be doing it, just to be seen. They don't care about how it's impacting the employees. They don't care about the leadership. They're just there just to get the job done. And that's not how an organization should be run. Clear policies and procedures. This is another biggie. If you don't have clear policies and procedures, you're going to have a mess. You're going to have a mess. That's why one of the first things I do when I work with an organization, I ask, do you have an employee handbook? Some organizations will have a little piece of one that was probably done in like 1997. Or some will say, yep, we're up to date. We just had one done in February of 2024. It's important to have that handbook in your organization because it helps when you have situations that may arise with your employees. The handbook helps give you guidance. And it's also a resource to your employees. So if they have a question, they may want to file a grievance. What's your grievance procedure? They may want to know, well, how much leave do I get after working here 5 years? That should be in your handbook. Do we have a workman's comp policy here? That should be in your handbook. What are the benefits for this organization? What are the holidays? What are the paid holidays? Those things should be in the handbook. What type of benefits do we have? That should be in your handbook. What does my organization stand on diversity, equity, and inclusion in the workplace? That should be in your handbook. So there's lots of information that should be in that handbook. Again, it's kind of like your little Bible for you as a supervisor, manager, as well as for the employee. There are times when I've had employees ask me about comp time. I'm like, well, is it in your handbook? Is there a reference to comp time in your handbook? No, we don't even know what the handbook is. We haven't seen a handbook. We don't even have a policy on that. So please, if nothing else, put these policies in place, have that handbook in place. Because if you got to go to court, they're going to ask for that handbook, or they're going to ask, was there a policy in place? So think about that. Also, when you have these policies and procedures in place, follow them consistently and fairly. Don't apply a policy to one person and then don't apply it to the other person when they do the same thing. If there's one situation, you use the policy for this person, but you don't apply it to the other person. That's where you're going to get into trouble. That's where you could potentially pay some money by not applying these policies consistently and fairly. It's real important to do that because employees talk. and they know who's being treated fairly and who's not being treated fairly. And so you don't want any complaints coming up about that. And I've seen it, and it gets really ugly, and it can really tear an organization up when employees talk and they feel like they're being treated unfairly. When you roll out a new policy, if you develop a new policy, make sure you communicate with your staff. Make sure everybody hears about this new policy. Make sure you explain the policy to them, answer any questions they may have, or have training sessions for your employees, but make sure that you roll it out and that you communicate with your employees. And don't create the policy. I haven't had any, but I've seen some times where a policy was created. It wasn't told to the employees about the policy, but then something happens, and then the employee said, well, I didn't know about that. Well, the policy's been in place for like 2 years. Well, how do you expect the employee to know if you never communicated the new policy to them? That's not fair. It's not fair. So if you know you're going to roll out a new policy or procedure, educate, communicate, and make sure that they understand what the new policy is and why there's a new policy. Regularly review and update your policy. Keep abreast of the new rules, laws that come down the pipe. You know, every new administration may have some new laws and new regulations that come out. So it's important to stay abreast of what's going on. You know, if you have, so a lot of nonprofits don't have an HR person with their organization, or they may have somebody do some semblance of HR. That's where, you know, it's helpful if you're a small organization to have an HR consultant, you know, somebody like me, who would come in and help you develop these policies, or let you know what the new regulations or what new laws are coming down the pipe. And again, when your organization meets certain milestones, then some of the laws will be more applicable. So just be mindful of those things. Performance management tools. Some nonprofits use performance management appraisals, some do not. The reason why performance management systems are important, they help you measure your employees' performance. They can also help with, again, we talked about strategic planning. Is the work that they're doing lining up with the strategic plan, the goals and objectives of the strategic plan? Also, we want to look at the mission and the value of the organization. There will be certain positions that have certain competencies that are required for that individual to do that job successfully. So it's important to grade or to assess that employee's performance based on the competencies developed for that particular job. One thing about performance management appraisals, they should not be used as a disciplinary tool. Performance appraisals are used to measure performance. Some situations I've had to coach leadership about is if an employee is not meeting the performance requirements for a position, or they make a mistake, as the leader, as the supervisor or manager, it's your responsibility to bring that to their attention right away. Do not wait until the performance appraisal to tell the employee, you messed up on October 23rd, 2023. and their performance appraisal is July 25th, 2024. That's not good. Because what happens is when you wait to the performance appraisal to talk to them about that incident, particular incident, you have not given them a chance to make the correction. Give them an opportunity to make the correction. Tell them what they did wrong. Show them how it should be done. That's a coaching opportunity. As a leader, as a supervisor, that's a coaching opportunity to help your employee do the job right. Because if you don't tell them that they're doing it wrong, they're going to keep doing it wrong. They're going to keep doing it wrong. And then that's not going to look good on their performance appraisal. Now, it's different if they did something wrong, you told them they did something wrong, and they keep doing it wrong. Then that's a write-up. That could be a write-up. And then some remedial training may be required. But again, make sure you address whatever issue that's going on as soon as you possibly can. Don't think it's gonna go away. It doesn't go away. As a matter of fact, if you don't address it, it can be worse. It can get worse and worse and worse. And I've seen that. And then it gets to a point where now the leader or the supervisor is calling me and saying, Sharon, I've got this situation. I don't know what to do. I need your help. And then I have to work with them and coach them through the situation. And that's going to cost your company some money that you could be using for to meet the mission of the organization. So think about those things when they occur. Deal with it as quickly as you can. If there's a harassment suit or discrimination or something like that, that you get a report on, it's your responsibility to address it as soon as possible. Do an investigation. Are there witnesses? Get the witnesses' testimonies. You know, what did they see? What did they witness? Try to do that as confidential as possible. And then report back as soon as you can what your findings were and what outcomes are going to be addressed. Let's see. When you're doing performance appraisal, make sure you do goal setting. Again, what is it that you expect from that employee? If you say, I want you to talk to 30 stakeholders by May 24th, 2024, you do their performance review. If they did, 24, 25, then they met their goal. So it's important. And even before it's time to do the performance appraisal, if again, you do those check-ins like we talked about earlier for the onboarding, check in with your employees maybe every quarter or every month or however you want to do it. And again, see what's going on, what's happening, what is it that they need, what's missing, because the boots on the ground, they know what's going on. They know what's going on in the community. They know what's going on with the people that you guys are serving. So it's important to listen to them because I'll be honest with you, they can help your organization grow so much if you listen to them because they know what's working and what's not working. Again, and when you're listening to them, then they feel valued. And when they feel valued, then you will definitely have an increase in your employee engagement and with employee morale within your organization. And again, with those types of things occurring in the workplace, again, you're meeting those goals and objectives of the strategic plan, and it also helps with the growth of your organization. I've got organizations that have grown over 50% over the last year. because of the work that they're doing. Their employees enjoy their job. They enjoy the work that they're doing. They know what the mission is. They're excited about the mission. And because of that, the organization is taking off and it's growing. So again, that's a cycle. That's an infinite cycle. So if you treat your employees right, they're going to take care of the organization. They're going to take care of your clients, the people that you're serving. And, and if they do really well and, you get a lot of money and you can put that in their raises and things like that, bonuses, you got happy people. They ain't going to be 100% happy. Not everybody's going to be 100% happy, but for the most part, if they feel like the organization cares about them, then they're going to give what they have to make sure that the mission is being met and the organization is successful. And there's going to be pride in the work that they're doing. So to segue, we just talked about raises and things like that. Salary and compensation surveys. This is the other thing that I have been really busy doing. Organizations, nonprofits really do care about, they're caring about whether or not they're competitive enough with other nonprofits. So I get requests, Sharon, can you go out to the market? Can you look at these positions that we have here? Are we competitive? Are the salaries too low? Are they too high? So they will send me a spreadsheet of their positions, what they're paying, how long the individuals have been working in those positions. And then I go out to the market. I look at other nonprofits. I use many different surveys and collect data. And then I come up with an average of what I believe the market is saying these different positions should be paying. And we compare the positions. Sometimes the positions are a lot lower. Sometimes some of the positions are a lot higher. But also the other thing is there are some positions with nonprofits, and you guys probably know this. Some of the ones that I'm seeing, there's organizations are having a hard time recruiting for our development people, like directors of communications, and I think another one was accounting, and I believe attorneys. So those are some of the positions that I'm seeing that folks are having a hard time recruiting. Oh, and grant writers, grant managers. That's another position that I'm seeing that nonprofits are having a hard time with recruiting. So again, that's when they go out and they said, okay, Sharon, what should these jobs be paying? And so that's when I go out and I do the search, I do the market research. I come back and I say, okay, this is what the market is saying. This information also helps. One organization I just did this for, they're in the process of beginning their budget. And so they wanted to look at salary information so they can prepare for their budget to see if they need to do any increases with salaries. Now, the one thing about salary and compensation studies are when we go out and we do the research, we're only looking at the position. We do not look at the person in the position. We look at the position itself. How much is an accountant being paid based on the market for a nonprofit? How much is an attorney being paid in the market, or a staff attorney, or a director of legal services or something like that? I go out and I look at the job description. When I'm searching those positions, I'm looking at the job description and the job title, and I'm matching it up with other organizations to see what they're paying those positions. I total them all up, I average, and that's where I get my number of what I believe the market is saying about those positions. I highly recommend these be done every 2 to 3 years, no more than that. If you wait too long, if you wait past 3, here lately though, even 2 years, you're behind the market. So at least every 2 years, I would highly recommend doing a salary or compensation survey. TogetherSC does a really great compensation survey. I worked with Madeline and some of the other folks, and so I'm sure this year's salary survey hopefully it'll probably have a little bit more information than the last one. And comp studies, they're going to grow every year, so as they continue to do it, there'll be valuable information there to help nonprofits with determining what they should be paying their folks when they bring them aboard. So in conclusion, we talked about compliance, onboarding, leadership, policies, performance, compensation. Again, look at your organization, what's going on in your organization, what are some of the challenges you may be seeing in your organization related to any of these topics or any other topics. Training is very important. Making sure you improve on your HR functions, kind of tighten that up a little bit. If it's not tight, look at what you're doing. Do you have a formal onboarding process for your new employees? Do you have a formal performance management system for how you measure performance with your employees? Again, all these things are important. And as your organization grows, these things are going to be vital for the success of your organization. Because again, your greatest asset is your employees, because they're the ones doing the work. They're the ones getting the job done. So, and that's it. That's all I have. Thank you.
Unmute myself. That was great. Does anybody have any questions? Did it ring true to your organization? Are there any comments that you would like to make? The floor is yours. We do have a little bit of time.
I have a question if I could jump right in.
You can.
Sure.
Cool. First, thank you for having this. It's extremely helpful in just helping to obviously improve what we're working towards doing already. You just mentioned in the Sharon, in the clear, I think you just mentioned the term performance management systems, and I know in the slides you had said there was a software or tools to use toward that. Is there a recommended software is there a software you could recommend?
I know years ago, in my previous life, I worked at Charleston International Airport. There's many different performance management software systems. The one that I used was Performance Pro. I don't even know if they're still in existence. If you have an HRIS system, sometimes those will have a performance management module. I think Sage software may have something like that. There's another one I can't think of, but I think there's many different software systems for performance management, or you can just do paper. Or you could use Google Forms or Google Docs and create your own performance management form, but some way have some type of document or something in place, again, to try to measure the performance of your team. And I can help, I've got access to some templates of performance management forms if you're interested.
Yeah, that would be extremely helpful. Yeah, I see what you're saying. It's more about the tracking of it and such, the creation and tracking of it, than having necessarily something
Mhm.
software wise to do it. Then, because we're a very small outfit, but I'm here because, like I mentioned, want to organize ourselves a lot better than
Mhm.
um than we have been. So thank you.
Yeah.
Makes
And
sense.
doing it consistently.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Some organizations, they'll do them once a year. Everybody's performance reviews them once a year. Some do it on the hire date anniversary. So it's just whatever's best for your organization. Any other questions? I know I went through a lot.
All right, well, if there's no further questions or if you need more time to process, feel free to reach out to Sharon and she'll share her contact information, or if not, I'll be sure to email the group her contact so that you can reach out to her.
I forgot to add that slide. I'm so
No,
sorry.
that's okay. I'll make sure that they all get it before I leave the office tonight. So thank you so much for attending. Our next workshop will be, let me tell you, I can't remember these things off the top of my head, on May the 9th. So I look forward to seeing you all again then. And until next time, have a great night and thank you so much for attending. Sharon, thank you so much for your expertise. I greatly
Thank you for
appreciate
having
your
me. I
time.
appreciate it.
All right. Goodbye,
Okay,
everyone.
bye-bye.